Hi, Juan here with Politico, a Spotify original from Anchor.fm, or now known as Spotify for podcasters. Do you want to make a podcast just like this one? Maybe better. I'll let you decide. It's easy and as simple, literally at your fingertips. If you go to your app store, you can download Spotify for podcasters, or you can visit the web browser at podcasters.spotify.com to start a free account today. With Spotify for podcasters, you will be able to upload your podcast to all platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and all the other platforms out there. You can also create video podcasts, which can be uploaded to YouTube or other streaming platforms. At the same time, you can create interactive phase for your fans. This is Q&As, polls, and even invite your fans through a link that would allow you to talk to them on a one-on-one podcast. With Spotify for podcasters, you can also earn money, including a podcast subscription and ads just like this one. All the best and totally free. There's literally not a catch. So since we found Spotify for podcasters, we have been working to make our podcast better every day, and I highly recommend it. If you want to start your podcast, definitely give it a try. Download Spotify for podcasters, the app, or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started today. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of Politico. I am your host, Juan Collado Díaz, and thank you so much for joining me in this episode today, where we're going to talk to incredible experts and non-experts about all amazing political stuff that they know and things that we might not know, you may not know, and I may not know at all whatsoever. So get ready, because you and I are going to get our minds blown, and the guests might get their minds blown too by things I say. With that said, let's have a blast together, and let's get political. Today with me, I have Andre Cato, I have Vanessa Jones, and Ed Barr. They're going to be talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse situation that happened in 2020 during the BLM riots. So let's get ready to talk, and let's get with this. Let's get the microphones to you guys.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vanessa, and I am a retiree, and I am a social science bachelor's degree grad student. And in the community, I assist with my team here, volunteering and human rights activists, political rights activists, and in the senior citizen circles, I'm active in that, and I enjoy my life with my grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
My name is Ed. First and foremost, greetings and salutations, aka Mr. I got Mr. Reparations with me at my side, but I am under my Activision account. That just happened in Call of Duty, and if I stabbed you, it was on purpose. AKA, Step of the Villain. Who am I? I am first and foremost a child of the Most High. Second of all, I consider myself to be a conservative constitutionalist. And, pretty much I usually, if I say something, I stand on that, and that's that.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you, Juan, for having me. Vanessa, first of all, give honor to God, the pastor. All right, let me stop playing. I'm Andre Cato. I am the proprietor, co-founder of and creative director of Massive Boy Entertainment and Massive Boy Ventures, a multi-faceted, multi-integrated media company. And so that means, yes, I'm probably a professional homosexual out here playing pickleball with your grandma and your mom at the same damn time. I'm also represent the other half and co-founder of the Mighty Remitters, aka Catosaurus by some, aka Dre, and Young Reparations, because we came to take it back. The kingdom taken by violence.
Let's go!
Juanito!
All right, thank you, everybody. So let's begin talking. So let's go there. Let's talk a little bit about the situation with Kyle Rittenhouse. I mentioned this, and this topic came in the middle of a conversation when we went through 20 different things. So first, let's jump in and let me ask everybody: do you think that he was, that he had the right to be there, and why? He had the right to be there, but why was he there? Do you think he was supposed to be there? Do you agree that he should have just stayed his ass home and do nothing because it's not like his problem. He wants to town over, or what are you like? What is your personal beliefs there? You guys decide, or let you guys decide who starts and who goes first.
Okay, cool. Me, I'm like Schultz. I really don't know nothing, but I actually think that Mr. Rittenhouse is well within his rights, particularly since he was driven there by his lovely mother, who I'm sure cares for him dearly. And that seems giving him the permission, so far as I understand, to be where he was with her authorization. And I think that he's got a freedom to be where he likes to be. I know he's been condemned for being out of place and out of order, but I think that we treat our young people far too delicately, and we baby and pamper them, and at the same time we demand and command and keep scratching our head as to why they're not more mature, why they are not more involved actively, and what are they going to do about bringing this country into where we think it needs to be balanced out in the future. I think you need strident and strong, ardent, focused young men and women to take a stance, and sometimes that may be something that results in violence and death. We don't like to think about that as a part of the peace process, but it is.
Okay, now my opinion is, I'm not going to piggyback on that. I'm going to give you my opinion. First, as a mother and grandmother, there's no way in blank that I would authorize any child under 18 in my family or friendship circle, because the responsibility of carrying a weapon to do harm or not harm is something that a mature person of age and life experience should do. I fought his mom. I would never, ever go along with anybody taking any of my family or children that I talk to children out of my circle all the time and within my circle, because sometimes they can't talk to their family about something they want to have an opinion about. So, but I wouldn't give them advice. I would tell them, I don't think that's a good thing to do. You can get peaceful resolution, and make sure you're old enough and wise enough. Maybe his mom might not be too wise even at her age, even though she's his mother.
Ooh, shots fired.
So this is really my reasoning here. We all have an intelligent quota. It doesn't have to do with our age. So I don't think she should have went with him or thought that was a cool idea for her child to go in the line of fire and say, wait a minute now, we're going to have to step back and let the law do what they need to do. First of all, we got to stay in our own county, city, state, where we're protected by those laws because we live here. Let's stand back and watch this for a minute. That's what I said about the maturity of the mother. Because a child can go out and be reactive without guidance. That's what the ancestors and your parents is for, to give you guidance, love, and direction. So I am not for her approving it, going along with that. And now your child has part of 3 people, 2 that aren't here now, and 1 who mentally, permanently going to be damaged the rest of their life, and they're going to be stalked by the story. Okay, your child's going to be stalked by the story. The woman's going to be stalked by the story. These people that lost their lives, this whole circle of things is out of control. So that all of this is wrong, and all she could have said is just stay home. Let's talk as a family unit. Let's even get a minister in. Let's get this person in, a social worker, whoever this kid needed to go see, to say, I want to do this, Mom. What do you think? I would never tell my child to go out there. I'm going to take you and let's put the law into our own hands. I love mine too much, seriously, to do that. So that's my opinion on that part. So absolutely not. That's not my social work thinking. That's my life experience, and that's the love for my children. Next.
Okay. I will take a gander on that. As far as her viewpoints go, him being 17, he was well within his rights to actually own a shotgun or a rifle. You have to be 21 to own a said pistol, for which he did not. As far as being a live human being and traveling, there should be no issues, in my opinion, according to the Constitution behind that. Like I started at the beginning of this podcast, I am a conservative constitutionalist. So I see subject matters like this differently than most. Okay. From my understanding from the stories, and my beliefs is that he was well within his rights, regardless of the fact that, you know, a lot of people look at it racially and the fact that he was a pigment challenged young male toting a gun, going and looking for war. Honestly, if you paid attention to everything that was going down, even involved with the case that he was fully acquitted of, he actually was going to the neighboring town to visit his friend at the store to help him make sure his friend's store didn't get violated, vandalized, whatever. But he also went with peaceful means, even with medical equipment and stuff. He was trying to help keep the peace. And I don't know about everybody else, but me personally, am I going to sit and wait 35, 40 minutes when people come in with guns saying the police is going to be on their way? No. It is my God-given constitutional right to defend myself, my property, my land against threats, foreign and domestic. I honestly believe that there should be less actual gun laws, because most gun laws from origin and inception actually have racial innuendos behind them, and it violates your constitutional right. So for me, looking at all the facts, I honestly believe that gun education is what needed. Like, we teach our youth, hey, that's fire, that's a stove, it's hot, be careful. That's a tool that can harm, and that's a tool that can help. That tool that he used is one that can be used to stop a threat, literally, completely. Because if you point it at something, you don't point at anything you don't intend to shoot or destroy, period. That's my thoughts on the subject matter.
So, you know, I regularly don't express my thoughts on situations, but I have to join in this part and talk a little bit about it. So I personally, and this is, you know, coming from my libertarian perspective, I think that whoever wants to own a gun, they're more than welcome to. It's their constitutional right, as Ed just said. But I also wanted to mention and also share here that as long as, even if it is your constitutional right, you still have to follow specific, like, you know, rules in the states. And one of them is, you know, if you're a minor and you don't live in a specific city, it's just none of your business to, you know, to at least say it's none of your business to be across city lines trying to defend your friend's store when your friend can either defend themselves, have someone else, or have an adult, pretty much, and just have someone there, you know, someone who's willful to do that, or just call the police when something like that is happening. I mean, I know, and I mentioned this before, and if you follow me on social media, you also know this. The police is not the most helpful, or they're never there. Then when they're there, they're little to no help. So, you know, they're I'm sorry, but they're useless, pretty much, and I'm gonna say it that way, and I'm gonna express it. That's how I feel. But at the same time, maybe you have someone, and not a 17-year-old, running around the city. If he was gonna protect someone's store, and his mother is driving him, his mother should drop him in front of the damn store, not drop him halfway across the city to walk to that damn store. There's also no means that kid should have been outside running, you know, while this is happening. So bad parenting, bad situation, that moment to drop your kid off, you should have just shut the hell up and stay at home. And pretty much, you know, I'm not gonna say it was a racially intent shot, because it wasn't racially intent to shot someone, but him getting there was racially intended, because by the time that he crossed like state borders, he was going there because black people were rioting. You know, it wasn't because white people are taking over the country. No, it's because black people were destroying the city, as, you know, the white colonizers did when they came to America and destroyed everything that the indigenous people had. And that's how I personally see it, how I personally feel about it. As I mentioned, I never regularly share in this podcast my personal opinion. Regularly, it's more about the person, but I need to jump in on that one. So I'm going to ask all three of you, and, you know, to say, I'm going to start with Andre, then Eddie, then Vanessa. And this is more, I mean, personal belief, like when he shot the person it was self-defense, and it was true self-defense. We saw the videos, it was self-defense. Do you think that self-defense happened, but do you think that the self-defense could have been avoided if his mother would have been a better mother and dropped him off at the store, or he would have just been at his friend's location? I don't know if it was a store or a establishment, but if he would have been at that establishment and he wouldn't be running around the city. So do you think this situation could be prevented, in other words?
I think this situation could have been prevented.
It could have been prevented if the mother would have taken a better action to drop him at the store location, or at least not have him walking around the roads in the middle of the street like he was.
I would say I would give credence to your argument that things may have, because I didn't see how much the store was encroached upon, if anybody ever talked about that. So I would say that there is a possibility that there might have been alternative endings to this situation if she had dropped him directly at the friends instead of letting him walk there. But we don't know what the traffic situation was at that time. Just from what I've seen here in Cleveland, what takes place, there are a number of people that pop up at these things. The other thing is that we have to be, I'm not even going to get into my truther bag, but we have to be mindful of who attends these kind of affairs, because oftentimes there are it's not organized nowadays. Every and anybody who wants to jump up and get clout or say that they were there is there. They don't necessarily have any kind of conflict resolution mediation training. They may not be there for the right reasons. And then in addition to that, we know, and we have known, and there's documentation, at least to my knowledge, my understanding, since the 1960s, that COINTELPRO, or FBI counterintelligence, has been in full effect as far as infiltrating groups, showing up at events and functions, and being the ones that, under the guise of being the everyday Joe, starting and initiating a lot of violence and trouble. And it's no telling if these dudes were part of that situation and thought they were just going to get a clean come up. Because of course, when you work with the Alphabet Boys, and when you also work with the police as an informant, there are certain liberties and graces that you are given that the average man is not given. So they may have thought they were going to wash this boy and still get a clean getaway. And so I guess we could say that, but we could also say, had he not had his firearm, that he may have actually become a victim and been bludgeoned to death, stomped and kicked to death, or shredded some other kind of impediment, or left as a vegetable, left in some catatonic state or some state subpar of quote unquote normal existence and levels of moving. I mean, also, we can't Monday morning quarterback, because a lot of people don't like to be told how they can parent. And here we are, although we're well within our rights to examine the situation, saying exactly how his mother dealt with it and how his surroundings dealt with it. They may have already had this conversation way before this event even happened, as we're having the conversation now. And they may have also had the conversation coming down the road, and they may have thought that this was the best course of action. And if they were in line with their personal values and principles, even though we may not agree with it, and they're left to deal with the repercussions, and I guess as an entire community that reverberates from their city, their state, their county, into the rest of the country and the world, that, they may have, to Vanessa's point, executed a conversation about this in advance, and this may be just how they may also acted off the notion of a shotgun play, pun intended, because I love puns. But yeah, so I think that it's a 50-50 call. We would never really know unless we take a DeLorean.
Okay, so I guess the question was whether he was actually dropped at the location or as close as he could. From my understanding, with those type of events, you can only get to a certain spot. And as my brother finally stated, we don't know what conversation. Yeah, my long-winded brother has finally love the sound of their voice. He's finally also explained and exuberated that we don't know what their conversation was leading into it. Honestly, from my understanding, from looking at the trials here and there, I didn't get to see everything, but from the gist of what I got, he was actually at said store, and situations ensued outside of said store, and it led to someone who was grown thinking he was going to punk some young kid who had a firearm, and from my understanding was trying to just take it, and started using racial innuendos from my understanding, towards him. But it's funny to me because none of this is racial, because all of the individuals from him to the victims were all pigment challenged. So where's the racist or the racial clause? I don't get it. Is it? And even though it was supposed to be all pigmented people that was supposed to be wilding out in the streets, none of them actually got attacked. So I don't see that. I just think that was some of the spin of the web and the news and the propaganda to exploit the situation, because a lot of people feel that we as the people don't have a right to have firearms. Now, also from my understanding, the one guy seen in the video went to hit him and strike him in the head with a weapon. At that point was being used as a deadly weapon, which was a skateboard. He was actually running away from the scene with the firearms. And it got to the point that after he was struck once, struck twice, then he boop, boop, and he's on the ground. So it's not like he can't keep running. Was he supposed to stay there and just die, and then they take the weapon and then he's just or whatever? No, I'm sorry. He was well within his rights to defend himself, and I stand on that. But now, could this whole situation have been averted, I think was the other part of the question. I mean, we can always go hindsight 2020 and what if all day long, but in reality, if it's your time, it's your time. 1 out of the 3 survived. And how many times do we push our luck to actually go the wrong way? And one of those guys actually, from my understanding, had a criminal background, and according to the rules of where they were at, was not allowed to actually even be in possession of a firearm, which honestly I personally feel is unconstitutional, but I digress. So even with all of these said events, how do we not know there weren't troublemakers looking for heroes to make martyrs? We don't know that. All we know is this event happened. It was what it was. At the end of the day, is it a sad situation? Yes. Now, how do I feel about this as a whole? I feel we all need to train. I feel we all need to prepare. My drill instructor, when I was in the service, made quite clear what you do is, it's like we go by Murphy's Law. Anything can go wrong, will go wrong. So you train and prepare for that. And you hope that day never comes. Honestly, we don't set out to just take lives. That's not what this is about. But if the need comes up to protect yours, that you have to take one, then that's what it's about at the end of the day.
Just for the record, because I know, again, already saying I deal in my perspective of understanding of the truth, people would say we're wacky, but apparently there was an 8 o'clock curfew that night. So the question about what his mother should have done is almost moot. In effect, you could say that they were either through civil disobedience to define the law, but every person that was at that place at that point in time were in exact defiance of an imposed curfew. I don't personally agree with imposed curfews, but there was one. So no one should have really been there. So we could ask the question, if those guys had maybe stayed their ass across town, would things have been different? Also, it appears that he may have been within his right to actually be there. The curfew I checked out so far, and I don't know if it goes back to 2020, in that area is 10:30 p.m. And I don't know if that authorized wherever he's supposed to be, because technically I'm assuming if this was a friend's store, then he was with an adult. He was supposedly walking a lot and walking the street during, what do you call it when you're security?
Oh yeah,
during his rounds.
Doing rounds, yeah.
And so it looks like he was primarily a lot of the time on the lot. One could say that he was marshaled as an official of that lot, and thereby may even be looked at as a volunteer and intern or employee. At which case, I don't know what the rules are about that, because when I was in high school, I had a job at that age, and there were many days that I was out after my curfew, coming to and fro work. And then lastly, I would just say that it looks like the event took place somewhere between 10 o'clock p.m. and 11 p.m. So he, again, may have had this happen, because it says the event took place, from what I can gather, 2 hours after the 8 p.m. curfew, which would have made it 10. So, again, that puts some more questions about where he belonged, or where anyone belonged that is a slave, any citizen of the United States.
That is awful. But to agree with you, Andre, to add to what you just said, your and this comes to the specific part of curfews. Curfews are lifted when you do have a job and employment in every single one of these 50 states. Curfews are lifted if you are coming or going or leaving your job. So curfews don't work as long as you're going to your place of employment. Kyle Rittenhouse was not going to employment, and still not. And I did look this up. Even though what he did, it was classified in the state vigilantism over being a volunteer to the state, which is exactly what he did. It wasn't about carrying the weapons. It wasn't about him. It was about what he was doing outside of the store. He was protecting property and not people, because those people could have gone home and they could have boarded up that store and leave, which is what happened in Cleveland. And it was also what it was told. Many people didn't try to defend their stores with weapons, were told by the police in Cleveland. And this law was also pointed in many states when that happened. And it's the same thing when many states called martial law when that was happening, which means citizens are not allowed to be outside carrying. I mean, it's unconstitutional to tell us what to do, but it's also when martial law happens, you're not allowed to be outside carrying a weapon or playing vigilante, because at that point you can be charged as a vigilante, which in many states is a felony or a misdemeanor for. So it depends on how it works.
And as far as a vigilante, I didn't see him being no Frank Castle in any of the videos, going out talking about and just boop, 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 boop through the crowd, taking out bad guys. I saw him actually telling everyone, hey, chill out. He was trying to actually help people, which I don't know where that skews on the line of vigilantism. So to me, it looked like he was more or less a medic that was armed. From my understanding, he looked like a medic that was armed, from my understanding. So, yeah. So he can, in my own personal opinion, he was well within his rights. Evidently he cared for his friend, but as you did state, I guess there is a difference between protecting property versus personnel, but who knows? We don't know how far it could have went. They could have stormed the thing and tried to actually take his friend out. That's another what if, but it didn't happen. All we do know is that grown men approached who looked to be like a young teenager because they seen him with a firearm and proceeded to antagonize and basically push the bear into the corner.
That's a stupid game.
Also, before I let Vanessa speak, I want to make sure and clear that not only the opposition was open carrying, and this was happening every single one of the states that BLM protests happened. That was also BLM protesters open carrying.
Oh yeah.
So everybody was open carrying. I open carry as a BLM on the side of not the organization, because I have shared my opinions on the organization on my social media, that if you don't know, it's going to be in the description of this podcast, whatever, on Spotify and every other platform. But I clearly, and this has been stated to everybody, you are allowed to open carry. Protesters are open carry, and I was a street medic and I open carry. I wasn't open carrying a firearm. I was open carrying a crossbow with arrows loaded. Pretty much, I could have shot you. I could have sent you down.
Robin Hood.
Hey, he was a super vigilante. You have filled the city.
So under laws, I wasn't playing Green Arrow.
I appreciate it.
Under laws,
I appreciate it.
Under state laws, firearms, bows and arrows are classified under the same level.
Yes, they are.
Of arms. So
yes,
I can still open carry a crossbow, bow and arrow with no problem, which I did. But
Damn, son.
Again, everybody open carry, so that was part of also the antagonizing. Wasn't really because he was on the far right. It was pretty much because they were just assholes.
Yeah. Hey, I'm glad, honestly, that you did still choose to open carry. I'm for everyone actually carrying, whether concealed or open. Honestly, I personally feel everyone needs to be walking with two guns, like Yosemite Blam, ba-bam, ba-bam. You know what I'm saying? But one for each side, left and right, because you never know where it's gonna come from. With training, I'm just saying. And also, the reasoning behind that is because when I was in 9th grade, I had to do a report on actual gun violence from the cowboy area to that current time, which was in 1996. And I found that areas that had more gun control laws actually had more deaths per capita of gun violence than ones that had more lax gun laws. And the whole idea of shootouts at high noon was heavily embellished by Hollywood and movies and stuff, and it wasn't to the same degree. honestly, I'm for all of that because all the idiots die quick. I digress. I stand on that. But anyways, human preservation kicks in. How many gun stores do you know that get robbed during the day? I'm still waiting. I'll keep waiting. Gun stores get robbed at night when no one's there. Human preservation kicks in. So when there is, in the military, we use it as a term as a soft target. That's why you have all these mass shootings, which is a highly embellished term, at schools and stuff. Those are soft targets. Now, back in the days, I remember factually that students used to be able to bring their hunting shotguns to school. There weren't school shootings then. So, I mean, what is it? All I know is the more our rights actually get violated, the more trouble you see later.
Okay, I must speak on being a baby boomer and of the civil rights era. And as a little child, I literally was on 86 and Cedar. I will never forget this. Seeing a tank go down our street, completely out. And I told my brother, 2 years younger than me, 22 months, I said, look, a real tank, the ones that you play with on the floor. My father flew outside, snatched me and my brother, and brought us into the house. I heard all this conversation about the Huff riots, and he was saying why we couldn't go over there. But as a little bitty, like 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old, listening to it, just like floor you, you know, a little kid see a real tank, and the guy sticking his head up out of a tank going down the street. So I'm just saying, you know, this is like the things that shock children. And my father, thank God, the type of person he was like hipster. He gave me the real conversation about Black pride, Black rights. Why is this happening? Why we can't go over in that neighborhood? He said people are angry. People aren't being treated fairly. He said not just people that look like me. And he pointed to his skin. He was a mixed man, and he didn't even know he was a mixed man. But anyway, he said it looked like me. He said, and we're fighting for that. Well, he didn't tell us everything. He told us enough for our age to understand. And also said my mind went back to that. But just seeing Kennedy killed on TV, Martin, Malcolm, the TV, showing us this at such a little young age. And then I'm bringing it up to now for a reason. That guy's civil rights had to happen. This is why we got the rights to do the things that we're doing right now. Now, going back to this, I'm going to say this too. I'm a mother of a Army veteran. I have uncles who are Army veterans on the maternal side, and my dad's best friend is the same person, my dad. His best friend was in the Marines. So I respect that about being able to carry a weapon. But I remember my one uncle said one thing. He said, some of these young people, ROTC, aren't ready to carry. He didn't say gun. And my son is the veteran. He said, Mom, we don't call them guns. We call them weapons.
Yeah, weapons or firearms.
That's right. He just kept on saying weapons. And I was writing letters to him. He said, wait, watch your words. You writing your letters to me. And I'm reading. And I said, he said, because, you know, they read our mail. I was like,
yeah, as a vet, I can understand.
Over in Afghanistan. So I was like, okay. So anyway, I respect all the laws about responsible, age appropriate, mentally age appropriate. You got these killers out here that are not getting a psych check to get a gun. Do we really know this young man's psychological profile? Did he have a history of problems, delinquency, obsession with guns, some violence and crime in his community, on TV, in his neighborhood, in his house? Was his father and mother both present most of his life? How did they discipline him? So this is my social psych thinking coming into play here. This is why I was saying I would never encourage a young person to take action to defend. Yes, this is your friend, but do not forget this is your friend's battle. Do we step into this and we don't really know all the laws where we already live in? Because some people aren't as wise as we are sitting around this table to learn our laws. As a person of color, when I went to college is when I really started learning laws. I heard my ancestors talk about it. So if my home was like that and I'm at this other side of 50, like I said, I don't know what his mother's psyche is to let her child think it's okay. Yes, to be on your friend's side. Yes, to be choosing to think this is the right thing to do. We have a right to decide this. But her stepping into this space and saying, hold on, my son might go and do this. He might lose his life. He might not lose his life. He might get hurt. Someone else might get hurt. Me as a person, I'm not putting mine out there to take that risk. Now, when my son decided to go to the military, he was a man. He was the oldest in his platoon. I'm going back and forth for a reason. I'm talking about mental stability, mental maturity, psychological maturity, psychological stability. So this is why this country, out of all the countries in society, we have a lot of rights, but still some laws haven't been thoroughly thought through and then let it get aged and have experience and then say, let's rethink this. Even the way this country was made and developed, and this Bill of Rights, the Constitution and all this, it needs to be completely, to me, this is my opinion, after studying all this to my bachelor's level, really rechange, because the first, how they even brought this country to existence, you don't come over into another country and just wipe other people out and take over their land because they don't look like you, they don't worship like you. Then you're going to take people from other countries and make them slaves and say, we don't work you for free. We over here, we pirates, we thieves, we open-minded thinkers about how we're witches, all kinds of things. We can't worship how we want in our country. Okay, but still you did bad things while you were over here. Colonizers, Puritans, Pilgrims, the doors, all of them. So where they were at when they made the Constitution, and now, how many years is that? 400? Think about the countries around the world. No, they're constantly changing their laws. Canada, Norway, as you know, who said the nice countries, the happy places, they're not shithole places. But I'm saying that we're like still stuck. So there's a lot of laws that still need to be changed. I took plenty of government classes under my social work that I didn't even need, but I did it for a reason, so I could talk like we talking now, round table, and for my legacy. To tell them, look, you go out here and you make a mistake. Whether I approve it or not, you made a judgment call at whatever age, under 18, to go out here. I would never, mine's not going out there with my permission. You better be 18 and still really 21. I don't think 18 ain't it. I'm going to say 21. I would stand on that. I'm with the other adult. For
fuck you.
I can't believe she just dead her in the air.
Respectfully.
Respectfully. I can't believe she. Yes. No.
I'm with the other baby boomer. I'm with the other baby.
See, that's why they after. That's why they after our neck.
So anyway, back to the laws though. I'm
bleep it out
for the children. As a mother, thinking as a social worker, thinking in social science. And I'm thinking about the young man also who thinking he's doing the right thing to be with his friend for his cause. Even Martin said riots gonna come if people are unhappy and things are being done unjustly towards them. So we have our allies. He was trying to be somebody's ally. His mom probably thought that was okay. She's got a right to her opinion. That's what her mind thinks of it. I'm just saying mine would not do that. My life experience, my culture experience, my education, hell no. That's not the right thing to do. Okay, now if the kids still go out and do it, guess what? I'm going to sit there and say, you're responsible for your own action.
Wait a minute.
I don't have money to bail you out if you get in trouble. I'm just letting you
know. Okay, so I got a question. So first and foremost, this area that it happened in, was this considered a low-class area? Was this like a hood area? Was this a project type area? Was this the bad area? That these ghetto. Events, was this an urban ghetto area?
Wherever the Rittenhouse thing, or a Huff, because there's two things that could be.
Well, both. I'm talking about both. Okay. I'm talking about both.
So Huff classified back in the day. Huff was, I don't want to say that it was a middle class, but it was a working low middle class area.
Exactly.
Now after like Pretty much.
Because we know it's like the projects right now.
Now it's the projects right now.
Right.
And it's classified the ghetto. It's in Cleveland. Now, Rittenhouse neighborhood, I am not actually aware.
No, where he went to, not where he stayed. Where he went to.
Something like Rittenhouse, like where the situation happened with the Rittenhouse. I'm actually not aware.
Okay, so what I am speaking upon, and the reason I'm bringing this up, regardless of the laws, first and foremost, I always say the one law that is supreme over the land is the Constitution, even to the point of where unjust, unconstitutional laws got to go back to the Supreme Court so they can dead them. So let's get that out the window. Like I said, I stand on that, the Constitution. Period. The reason I bring this up is because of Tyron's rat experiment that happened in 1942. So basically, psychologists took like 40 rats and put them in maze A, and they took 40 rats and put them in maze B. Okay, this is in the early 1940s. So what they did is in maze A, they basically made them have enough room. They could go wherever they want. They had clean, good food, no poison, no chemicals in it, pure, good water. They could do whatever they wanted. And they stayed in this maze for 4 months. After 4 months, they cleaned out the maze, took all the rats out, and they put the rats back in it to see if they could make it through the maze. They did. Now, here's the thing. It was a total of 80 rats they used, okay? Something like that. They all came from the same gene pool. Now, the rats in control group B were in a maze that was tight. It was cramped. It was filthy. They had horrible food, horrible conditions. It was bad. After 4 months, they took them out. These rats didn't know what to do. They couldn't even make it through the maze. So then they were like, well, wait a minute. These rats over here in B is stupid and the ones in A is smart. Well, why don't we flip it and see if the smart ones can go in there and then they can make it through the maze? Okay, now here's the kicker. So the rats that were in B went to A. Now all of a sudden they're thriving in the good thing, good food, good clean water. Always like the scientists kept it clean of pee and urine and all of that. Well, what they found that happened with the now switched rats that went to control group B, they started seeing signs that the rats basically started gang banging amongst themselves, meaning that they started stealing food from each other. They started murdering the other rats. The mother rats had nothing to do with the children. All they were concerned about was kneading their fur and making sure they were good. The male rats started raping the young mice rats. This is it's a literal thing. You can research it. And they were raping the boys and the girls, and all of this was going down. Don't that sound like Control Group B was the projects? So, is it learned behavior or is it your environment? A lot of times it's the product of your environment, which is why I brought this up. So sometimes it's not the laws, it's what they press upon us to force us into certain situations that they know predictably what outcomes is going to happen. So, I'll let you go on, but
I'm sorry. That brings to mind the idea. One, I sometimes sit too much and think and try to make sure I'm not just jumping out the window. But I did make an observation. I'm not sure if you guys did. I believe it was between either 1964 and 1965. Those riots happened.
Civil rights.
The Huff riots. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you go back and look, I think it began because I was watching a documentary one night, late night, on PBS. And when I looked at it, I was like, wait a minute. There were riots in Cleveland. There were riots in Detroit. There was riots here and now. There was riots all the way up to LA. There was riots up to the Bay. Hold on one second. This is being publicized. At the same time? Everyone's deciding that they want to destroy the area that they live in, that at that time still maintained some black proprietors in it. I personally don't think that would be an authentic and organic thought for a group of people to have, because we would be as dumb as the rats they have. And their studies, as my brother said over here. So I suggest, much of the other, that these situations were spurred on or even stoked by the machine to happen, and that they weren't organic, so that we could sit and not think that we can think. Now, speaking about thinking and development, the teenager that I saw earlier from the 1950s is actually an advent of 1941. And you will know that these developers think at a minimum of 20 years down the road, 10, 15 years. So now think about it. In 1920, you're making a more decadent lifestyle in America with the roaring 20s. You segue through the Depression, people are coming out of that. They're getting all this boon of what happened with the Hoover Dam and what happened with FDR and all these programs. This money's coming to their pockets. The suburbs are slowly beginning to be developed. You now are on the precipice of what we now call youth culture. And the reason they invented this is so that you could get those indiscriminate youth dollars spent on more products. It also, contrary to historic meaning of when a man or a young woman became a man or a young woman, a young man or a young woman, which is much earlier in life, like 10 or 12 years old, that it could it could arrest your development and keep you juvenile for a much longer time. Mm-hmm. So we really sound, no offense to you, infantile and silly and diminishing our thinking to think that our young people don't have the ability, capability, and capacity to think far, deep, and wide when they have the ability, the capability, and the capacity to bust mad nuts and make mad babies. Each and every one of them. Fact. From the burbs to the poorest brothel and holler in Appalachia.
Right.
Now, I am hoping that
okay. Now, also as a dad, you know, I look at this and see all this other stuff, but I'm gonna let him come back to this. I don't want to lose this train of thought that we've been stepping on. So basically, you also got to look at the fact of this. How is it in the projects, all these hoodlums is coming up with rocket launchers, grenades, AKs. Ain't none of them been to Iraq or Russia to know what that is. And they all have it. Ooh, a crate mysteriously appears in the middle of the projects filled with arms. Come on now.
In a community flooded with drugs.
Right.
But that's also part of the problem, because our government officials, and we know this, I mean, this is common knowledge. I mean, there's sales happening. For some of these guns at times, like as Vanessa, and going back to what Vanessa said earlier, Cleveland, I'm gonna make this very clear, and I'm gonna let the fucking bomb out there. There's no reason whatsoever why Cleveland police and any police department at a city level needs a fucking tank. Let's throw that one out there. If you need a tank, you call the National Guard or you fucking run for your life. There's no reason why any department needs a tank.
No.
Because these police like Cleveland police are corrupted from. And most of them are very corrupted. So that's how some of these weapons got in the streets.
We'll pause on that for a second, because me being supreme constitutionalist as I am, I feel like it says a right to bear arms. It didn't say what type of arms. So them putting blocks on what type of arms we get. I mean, even the president himself said, oh, if you wanted to try to go against your government, you're going to need F-16s and tanks. Well, where's my F-16 and tanks? And that's an arm.
That's what I'm saying. Local police officers are in no need of whatsoever of a tank. I don't agree that our like troops need a tank. I mean, fuck it. If you're in war, a tank is your best option. That's right. Do I agree that your local like police department, like CPD or Akron police, need a down tank
and they call it SWAT? When
we have seen the fucking levels of corruption among these departments. I mean, killing people, shooting someone 92 times because that person supposedly had a gun.
Oh, are you talking about the situation where the car backfired?
That coincides.
I was talking about Jalen was when they shot him, but you know what I'm saying is there is no reason, and this comes back to like in Kent, you when they were having like the college festival, like College Street, they fucking had a tank. They killed people. Innocent people got killed because the police thought in their authoritarian fascist power could do so, and that's a problem. When you give someone power of a tank, specifically a department that is already corrupted, you're gonna corrupt them more. You're giving them that ability. There's no reason why our department should need $50 million to militarize themselves. Because we are not in the middle of a war, and the citizens are not standing right now against the government out of the sudden, and are gonna fucking go in the street City Hall. It hasn't happened yet.
It's a paramilitary group, and it's actually meant to. Oddly enough, we talk about the protection of property. It's actually intended to protect the corporations, aka the cities in which they are.
But again, at that point, you either call martial law and get every single cop you have out there with the regular weaponry and some riot gear. There's no reason for them to need a tank. Never will be.
They're real. I remember when there's a clip of a CBS Sunday news story, and they were going and showing what happened during Katrina when they were kicking in doors and taking people's firearms, and they were also raping and molesting women. And they were well paid.
I'm not saying I'm saying take people's firearms.
No, I'm saying when they were taking them.
I'm saying why does a corrupt police department, and going back to what Vanessa said, need a team.
Well, first and foremost, absolute power corrupts absolutely here in this present plane of existence that we are in, period. But I understand your passion behind why do they. My question isn't why do they. My question is why don't we?
And that's exactly, you know what I mean, fuck, I want to own a tank. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
If I can have a tank, I will have a tank.
My name is first on the list for that Panzer.
I believe, I am a believer that if the government can own it, I can too.
We agree 100% on that. I always say that.
Yeah.
But I also have the belief that there's no reason why a low life class department like Cleveland Police Department needs a tank when they can fucking fix their jail problem right now. We're like county jail, it's literally rotting and slowly dying. There's no reason to go to jail.
Well, see, the county. The problem is that the county jail isn't really the county's jail. It's actually a private corporation that owns the jail.
Absolutely.
So it's privatized. It's not even, and this whole system of jail is jacked in its whole inception. It's just a money grab. It's not really about reform or trying to help people change or none of that. They don't care. They treat you like animals and they hold you.
Making the criminal.
Yes.
It's about making.
They kidnap people. It's a form of kidnapping while they make money.
The misdemeanor marijuana offense into a felony killer in less than 2 months. That's pretty much what the jail system is.
You get a great reward from it, from the idea of if there is, just let's say somebody had sat around and designed a plan. Like, let's get hip hop violence. We can do more things and make negative effects. If someone just say like, okay, if we pull someone out of their household and out of their family, you put them in prison or in jail for a long enough time that they lose their job, they maybe damage their reputation. Some of the relationships would help them move forward with opportunities. And now they're desolate. Maybe now there's some fracture inside the family. Maybe there's violence outside the family or abuses, or maybe someone's out homeless now and destitute. And maybe the children, now they have lost one or the other parent, and they have to resort to things that would make them become degenerate and maybe even hurtful to themselves and destructive to society, aka prostitution, aka what's the promiscuousness, or to selling drugs, et cetera, even petty stealing. So you get to destroy
the family unit, which was the first founding block to sustain.
And then you get to put you into prisons, which come with their own block grants and other financial aspects of it. And then you get to help guys like Bob Barker get rich. And then you get to kick people back out, ill prepared, not healed, to your point earlier about mental wellness and mental preparedness and readiness, Vanessa. And we're back at go. And you get to get that $200, the proverbial 200 every time you take that player around.
And also what you get is there's been massive studies that show that once you pull the dad out of the house doesn't operate to its fullest capacity. And it's pretty much set up that if it's a single mom or a mom that is single trying to raise her children, they know statistically that it's anywhere from as low as a 70 up to a 95% chance that the children are going to end up in their penal systems, period. They know this. So they set up the system to pull the man out the house, to fail the family, which then spills out into the streets. They know that a father that is single, that is taking care of the children, has 95% success rate. It's factual. They know it.
And if I could be the old man on the hill, if we return back to talking about youth and their mentality in those times that you grew up in and the other old ass person in the room grew up in. Hey, y'all shot first. Y'all shot first. Y'all came at me with the proverbial skateboard. I just hit back.
Listen, I love everybody here.
I was getting at that the youth, because I learned from an elder that one of the things we need to think about was twofold. When you are, one thing I asked him, I said he was involved in Freedom 64, so down where they killed those 3 workers that were doing. He said we were pretty much young people. We were teenagers. I mean, some of us were even younger than being teenagers. 2 things that he noted to me. I said, well, did you need to, what does that mean to you? He says, we need to think about how we train our young people and show them who their history are and what they are, that they're capable. Many times the young people, because we forget because of Martin Luther King and Abernathy and this one and Abe Lincoln and all the rest of them niggas, and we forget about the fact that, I'm sorry, ninjas, can you edit that? Cool.
Yeah.
It seemed to disturb the distinguished woman from the Harvard area.
Andre is a black man.
Facts.
He is a black man. There's not such a thing as a white Andre. Just making that clear. I will.
So it's okay for him to
It's
say
okay for him to
ninjas.
say the word that he said.
I have no problem with anybody saying anything, much like myself, if you can take what comes with what you said. So that being said, he said that we had to remember that it was the youth. A lot of what happened was youth oriented and youth driven.
Mhm.
And we seem to have erased that from our memories. That means that these young people, to the elders who said they were around in that time period, were many of the ones that were going out where they weren't supposed to be, when they weren't supposed to be, doing what they weren't supposed to be doing in the name of freedom. So it's really, how do you marshal the mindset? It's not even if you're in the proper mindset, because that was pretty much a very broad scope, even though I wasn't there. Now, so he's saying that we need to think about our youth and how we teach them and what they're capable of and what their real power is and what their real history and legacy is in this country and in the world. And then I asked him, I said, sir, I said, a lot of people talk about the softer side. You got your Malcolm, the harder side, you got the Malcolm X, you got the Panthers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some people talk of more of the kinder, gentler side. You have your Gandhis of the world, you have your MLKs of the world. What do you think is the discussion and debate about these two sides being at odds? He said, no, sir. He said, young man, we were able to do what we needed to do as peace lovers and turn the other cheek because we had somebody that they knew was going to smack them back. We had somebody they knew was going to take a firearm and split their wig if need be.
Right.
So I don't know the whole Kyle Rittenhouse dynamic, but we're really, I would ask the question. I won't say, I love to make statements. I think I know just about everything.
And I'm
mostly right.
I always agree to disagree.
You guys I'm from the future. I'm from the future. You guys usually catch up to me in about 5 to 10 years. But I'm going to say, are we doing our young people a disservice with this conversation to, instead of look at the foibles and the weaknesses of the game that everybody's going to look at, instead of looking at, how would we redo the situation? Same way with this young man being at that scenario with the firearm to make him stronger and make him maybe a little bit more bulletproof to the scenario. Is there a way? And then if that's not the way, then what are the steps to which you get to successfully and properly arrive at being at the car dealership guarding your friend's property? Because we just say it's either or. You're either there and you're a villain, because the media basically told us so, or you're at home and you're a nice young boy, pat on the head. Good boy.
Let me So, let me return really quick back to the thing, and we'll go with Vanessa, from Vanessa to Andrew over here. Eddie, you're always in the middle, no matter what. Let me ask.
Like Malcolm.
Now, I'm not gonna really go into much with this guy because fuck him times 10. A Florida man who is a rich American, I don't know, wig owner or whatever. I'm not gonna even bother to give him too many titles. A Florida man met with Kyle Rittenhouse, and I guess he's important somehow. I don't care how important he is now. And said that he was a nice kid. So then the Republican Party and everybody on the far right decided to idolize this kid. By doing that, they're teaching other kids, in the middle of a riot, go and shoot whoever the fuck you want and whatever, fuck it, shoot whoever you want and kill them. That's America can do that. Which, I mean, if you're being threatened, be my guest and shoot them. If you have a gun, there should be no reason why we should be thinking like, oh my God, he's a hero. Because he really is not a hero. He defended himself. He didn't defend anything else. He's not a hero to anybody or the world. He's just an educated kid who just decided to go around and with bad parenting. Because again, I'm not going to say that the mother couldn't get there, but the mother could have found a way to get there and protect her own child without having to drop him off. And if shit was happening outside of the store, as long as they don't come inside of your store, you shouldn't shut them. So how do you guys think then this far right ideology of making this guy a hero, how is this going to affect the rest of our current youth? And how has it affected it as of today, since this happened, I believe, 4 years ago? So, Vanessa, I'll let you start. This is the last question, by the way, before we finish the podcast, and we'll go all the way to Andre.
Okay. I'm glad you let me start first.
Short answers, by the way.
It's short and sweet, but not. The example that the young man made, and you said it right, it has put thoughts, you cannot say it has not, into not only him as a young man, but other mothers who think like his mother. It's okay you're going to go out here and be a hero, because senators are now saying, hey, look what you did. I want you to work on my team. And I know I saw that on the news. I was like, what
it did happen.
in the hell? And they smiling and like thinking this is cute. And I'm thinking, okay, where is this any intelligence at to sell that the whole world here, you just say that that's an okay thing to do. Like you said, this outcome could have went very different ways. Again, I'm going back to the family setting. His mother could have prevented all of this by having a sit-down conversation. I don't know what was the dynamics in their household, his social upbringing, his church family. No, I don't know any of this. But I'm saying just to hear that senator say that is what upset me, probably even more than this whole thing, to say that that's something cute and okay. It wasn't thought out well. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody says. That whole thing was not thought out well. Look at the outcome. All these other dynamics did not happen. These people lost their lives. Another person got hurt, and you got this twisted young man who thinks it's okay. You done told all these other, just by your actions alone, all these other young people and their mothers who think like them. Oh, it's okay to send my child out, and I'm gonna be for it. You're crazy, lady. You drove your son somewhere, a 17-year-old that still may not have been emotionally, intelligently, physically, mentally old enough to make a proper decision about a gun. The proper usage of it, the training. Has this boy been to a range to learn how to shoot a gun? Okay, my family's from the South on my father's side. They start basically in the womb of that generation. And I'm going to say up to almost, maybe my kids' age, we had still been in the South. My cousins and stuff know how to use guns. Way before I did, they were older. I was the second generation. My father was the first. And he told me clearly, and that conversation was in the South particularly, because of the Civil War and Jim Crow and everything else that happened down there. And people that come from my mother's family from Kingston, Jamaica. So in the islands, these places, they teach young people out of the womb, basically, to use a gun. They didn't have the laws that they have now. But this is a family culture thing. You went out, you were hunting and gathering in a more modern state than the old ancestors from our homeland of Africa and motherland, and wherever everybody else ancestors came from. Not just what they did then. Okay, so getting back to now, we live where if you're going to use a gun, there's laws. You have to be a certain age, and you need to be trained how to use it. If you go buy a gun, damn it, go to a range or in the military or whatever.
Big facts.
Sources you have. So I don't think that child made a proper decision, or his mother. And I'm just peeved about that. And that's not setting a good example. And that's my thought on that.
All right, Eddie, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll make this short and sweet. First and foremost, being a child of the Most High and a conservative Constitutionalist, we can go to biblical times. I'm not going to do that. I would say that those, if you want to, you could look. I go by the King James Version, so you will go by Luke 22:36 through verse 39. I'm not going to read it right now because the battery's going. So basically, it's talking about sell your purse or your cloak, and if you don't have a sword, and go buy you one. That was the red letters, word of Christ told you to do that. Everyone's always talking about we know it's live by, die by, turn the other cheek. Yeah, but sometimes even our Savior told you go pick that up. So at the end of the day, I agree that yes, education and training is necessary. Outside of that, hey, you get what you ask for, especially if it's in the defense of yourself, your loved ones, your personal property, or your beliefs. Honestly, that's how I feel, because that's how the Constitution is. Everything else, to me, possibly is semantics, because some things skew away from the Constitution, and then it has to go and get changed later. And then they do, and it's a long process. But in reality, life is precious. I'm not out here promoting, hey, shoot 'em up, bang, bang, like Yosemite Blam. I'm not doing all that. But in reality, if it come down to it, hey, we could break down the walls of Jericho and, hey, get it. If that's what you want. I shoot straight. But you can shoot straight too. See, the thing is you want to be prepared to go to war if necessary. But we should never have to go to war. We should always be able to compromise and at least communicate. That's the difference, and figure out and resolve our things peacefully. But as my brother so clearly said when he found out from old school, hey, they got that backing. and I pass.
I will say this. First of all, I do agree with my brother that your mind is one of your strongest and formidable weapons. It connects to your mouth, and you can really figure out how to use that. Body language and other kind of neural linguistic programming could be employed. We don't teach that. And I say that a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Someone who's going to do dirt and do grime is going to do dirt and do grime because that's what they would like to do. Conversely, someone who wants to do righteous acts and kind acts and do the same thing. The Most High is our paramount defense because he can employ our minds to be in the right zone and our soul and spirit to be in the right zone to not be vexed by devils and move forward with wisdom and discernment. Do for self and screw everyone else. This seems to be very popular right now. It is permeated the youth because they've been taught this for a long time. And those of us that are older seem to be latching on to that same mindset. That's very destructive. So we got to think about that. These children are used to backdooring, aka undermining and playing their friends to the left, doing grimy things and unsavory things to their friend group.
Yeah, facts.
Develop your mind. We already talked about that. This also is demonstrating something that I don't think we talk about. Two things. One, why are we not asking about the cops in the military? I don't know you. If I personally know you're in the military, I don't know you. I don't know the caliber of your character. I don't know how long you've trained on firearms. I don't know your level. I don't know why you're there and what your motives are. So we need to ask that of the police and other paramilitary and military groups. This also shows me that the white man is Teflon. Always a subconscious message, in my opinion, that is being sent through the media consistently, along with the fact that white girls matter. We'll get to that one next time on the remitters. So I think he's showing that more than just the youth. I also think that he's showing that I can't read or go. Yes, it could be influential to the children, but are we not thinking about things like the music? Not just rap music. I know rap music takes a bad rap, but no pun intended, even though I love puns. I didn't think that one up. But the rap music and other music, both frequency wise and lyrical wise, and the image put forth of them. If you ever watch that crazy Slipknot, you ever watch that crazy show Euphoria, the things they're teaching children to think about and how they think about life and how they think about violence and bombarded with, and it's being absorbed into their souls. And I think it's a very spiritual matter of sorcery, witchcraft, etc. More on that later. So we got to think about those things. Also, we have not had a conversation about the Chicago incident where the young man was heralded because he protected his loudmouth mammy.
Who, in my own personal opinion, was in the wrong,
way out of line. Now, the dude took it extra, probably because he was very emotional and erratic. Who knows what's going on with him? He took it too far, in my opinion, but
he didn't take it to threaten her life.
He didn't take it to threaten her life, but we heralded that boy. We didn't ask why she had him out in that point. We didn't ask why she was feeding a malnutritious thing that probably had red dye number 40 that affects her behavior. We didn't ask what she was in her mind state, how she's been talking to people all this time, or how she's been dealing with men all this time, or any other person. And we didn't ask why the young man had the firearm with him. We just applauded them and say, this dude slapped her. They got off walking away scot-free. And shouldn't we think about how is that influencing the youth, especially disproportionately those that are programmed with soft minds and those that are in urban centers?
And these urban drill music, which specifically basically be like, oh, you turkey, I'm a backdoor you, I'll jelly a biscuit, all that, like seafood. Look them up on YouTube. He basically show you play by play how do you think today.
So I don't think that is all the entire group. Just like all of us are not righteous and all of us that are supposedly older don't have necessarily good foundational grounding, and we do make mistakes. And I think we just need to think back to how we can get back to really what it means to be loving of a person and to be loving of yourself and to have love on your community, even though the Bible never tells you to love yourself, and to seek wisdom. So I think if we start having conversations like this and they get employed and dispatched through your wonderful distribution network, then we may be at the beginning and the pressures of a conversation. And then what actions are we going to take when we leave this table? And what actions are you, the beautiful, lovely listener and audience member and quote unquote citizen or man that God made freely to walk your planet, your city, and walk the jurisdiction of the earth and do something about it, to put in a program to teach children, to give a gun program like Twisted, to give an after school program like America Scores, to just be a friend or a neighbor that can offer a cup of water, or like the sister said earlier, some advice outside the family, because we tend to forget while we blame the mama, who else was in the community that could have said something? Those dudes that ran up on him could have easily been like, hey brother, how you doing? Can we get you a sandwich? Would you like a donut? What's going on with you? Why you come with the shotty, man? What's going on? Did you think that's necessary? Are you ready for this?
Right.
It's grown man business, to quote ATL.
Absolutely. So with that said, we will be probably recording a part 2 in the future of this, maybe a little more in depth with other things. I will leave in the description of this episode and also on our new Instagram page, everybody's Instagram, whoever wants to be, tag and share. So if you want to have more conversation in depth with them, we just opened also an Instagram account for everybody who wants to follow the podcast on Instagram. It is Politico Pod, so Political Pod, and you can find us on Instagram. I will also in the link of this in the description of this podcast, I will link everything, and you can also start seeing soon enough we'll have a website with notes where we will also link everybody's social medias. With that, thank you for listening. I will let Andre say something before he goes.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, brother, for creating this environment. Happy birthday, Vanessa.
Happy birthday.
And thank you for inviting me to be on.
Absolutely. We're recording this on Vanessa's belated birthday, but it will be uploaded probably a little way after that because there's some editing to do. But with that said, we will be back soon. For those listening to us before the holidays, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Politico with Juan Collado Díaz. Just remember that everybody's views and perspectives are their own and do not represent the ones of our team behind the scenes. Also behind the new intro song and outro song is our good friend, the Cleveland alt-night Mackenzie Lev. Thank you so much for creating the no-name song because there's literally no name to the song other than Politico Juan's intro. With that, thank you so much for listening. Happy holidays, everybody. And thank you again. This podcast is a Spotify original from Anchor.fm and Chuck Norris approved.
Chuck Norris approved.